The upscale fashion boutique in the heart of the city buzzed with the usual energy, until a sharp voice sliced through the air, silencing the room. "I told you, that girl doesn't belong here." A woman's finger pointed accusingly at a young black girl. Heads turned, customers froze mid-step, and all eyes fell on the teenage girl standing tall among the designer racks. What no one realized was that this moment would not only shift the atmosphere in the store, but also serve as a lesson about prejudice and misplaced pride. Her name was Layla Johnson, a confident 16-year-old with a sharp eye for fashion and a strong sense of self. That afternoon, she had simply come to the boutique for the first time on her own to find a dress for a charity gala hosted by her father. For Layla, this was more than just a shopping trip, it was a rite of passage. Her father wasn't with her this time. She wanted to make her own choice, feel independent, and enjoy the freedom of browsing the elegant displays she had long admired from afar. But not everyone welcomed Layla's presence. Margaret Whitmore, a longtime customer of the boutique, stood nearby dressed in pearls and designer heels. From the moment Layla entered, Margaret's eyes narrowed. To her, this young black girl didn't fit in with the luxury and refinement she associated with the store. She didn't say anything at first, but her disapproving stare followed Layla's every move. Layla, oblivious to the scrutiny, floated through the store with curiosity and excitement. When she found a stunning dress she loved, she smiled and took it toward the fitting room. But behind her, a cold voice spoke loud enough for others to hear. "I doubt she's even planning to buy anything. Probably just here to browse." The words weren't addressed directly to Layla, but the message was clear. The boutique, once full of stylish sparkle, now felt thick with judgment. Layla, just trying to find a dress for a special night, had become a target, not for what she did, but for how she looked. What she didn't know was that the real storm was only just beginning. Layla emerged from the fitting room with the dress hugging her perfectly. It shimmered under the boutique lights, and for a brief moment, she allowed herself to imagine what it would be like to walk into her father's gala in it, graceful, elegant, proud. She smiled, admiring her reflection in the mirror. But that fragile moment of joy was shattered by a saccharine voice from behind. "That's a beautiful dress," Margaret said, stepping closer, her voice coated in false sweetness. Layla turned, polite as ever. "Thank you. I think it'll be perfect for my dad's event." Margaret's smile twitched. "Are you sure you're in the right store, dear?" she asked, her tone suddenly turning sharp. "This place isn't exactly known for budget options." Layla blinked. The comment landed like a slap, not loud, but sharp and deliberate. "I'm exactly where I need to be," she replied, keeping her voice steady, though her heart had begun to race. She turned to walk away, but Margaret stepped in front of her path. "You know, you might feel more comfortable at one of the more affordable places downtown. I hear they have nice things for people on a budget." Layla's chest tightened, but she didn't back down. "I'll let my purchase speak for itself." Other customers nearby had begun to notice. Their hushed whispers floated through the boutique. Some looked confused, others uncomfortable. The store manager stood off to the side, watching silently but doing nothing. Then Margaret raised her voice, just enough to draw more attention. "Actually, I think the manager should take a look. I've been watching this girl, and she's been acting suspiciously. She might have slipped something in her bag." Layla froze. The words stung more than anything Margaret had said so far. Accused, in public, without cause. Her heart pounded as the manager approached, her steps hesitant. "Is there a problem, Mrs. Whitmore?" the manager asked, clearly caught between discomfort and duty. "Yes," Margaret snapped. "She's been eyeing things like she's planning to walk out with them. You should check her bag." Layla inhaled deeply. Her hands were trembling, but she looked the manager in the eye. "I haven't done anything wrong. But if it will stop this nonsense, go ahead." She handed over her bag. The manager searched it carefully. After a tense moment, she looked up. "There's nothing here," she said softly, almost apologetically. But Margaret wasn't satisfied. "Check again," she demanded. Girls like her always find clever ways to hide things. Layla's face flushed with humiliation. "Enough," she said, her voice low but firm. "This is harassment." Margaret stepped back, arms folded. "If you have nothing to hide, why are you so defensive?" Layla clenched her fists, her voice shaking but resolute. You accused me of stealing without a single piece of evidence. That's not defensiveness. That's dignity. The room fell into a stunned silence. A few customers looked away in shame. Others glared at Margaret. Still, the manager turned to Layla with hesitancy. I think it's best if you leave, she said quietly. We don't want any more disruptions. Layla's jaw tightened. You're asking me to leave, when I've done nothing wrong? Margaret smirked. Exactly. You're just proving my point. Layla stared at her. You're doing this because of the color of my skin. Margaret flinched but said nothing. The humiliation was complete, but Layla wasn't finished. She pulled out her phone and calmly said, Dad, I need you to come here. There's a situation. And no one in the store had any idea what was coming next. Just minutes after the phone call, the sound of an engine pulling up outside the boutique grabbed everyone's attention. A sleek black SUV rolled to a controlled stop at the curb. From it stepped a tall man in a tailored suit, his personal bodyguard. Sharp-eyed and scanning the surroundings like a hawk. Then, the back door opened, and Andre Johnson, Layla's father, emerged. His presence was commanding. Every step he took was slow, deliberate, and filled with quiet power. His suit was immaculate, his shoes polished to perfection, and his eyes sharp and unreadable. He didn't need to speak loudly to command the room. His very silence did. The glass doors swung open with a soft chime. The bodyguard entered first, his stern expression immediately turning heads. Andre followed behind, and a wave of whispers rippled through the boutique. Is that Mr. Johnson, the owner? Margaret Whitmore, still standing with her arms crossed, assumed she was finally getting the support she wanted. Seeing a black man enter, she guessed he was just a regular father, probably here to smooth things over. Well, it's about time, she said sweetly. I'm glad someone's here to deal with this. Your daughter has been acting quite suspicious. Andre didn't respond right away. He took in the room, the watching customers, the uncomfortable manager, and finally, his daughter, Layla, standing still with clenched fists, silently holding herself together. He walked over and placed a calm, steadying hand on her shoulder before turning to Margaret. You said someone was acting suspicious? He asked, voice calm but heavy. Margaret smirked. No offense, but this store isn't for just anyone. I was only trying to protect its reputation. The manager stepped forward, flustered. We checked her bag. There was nothing there. But you let her be publicly humiliated anyway? Andre said, cutting her off with a voice that barely rose above a whisper, but somehow filled the room. Margaret rolled her eyes. Look, I don't care whose daughter she is. People like her, she gestured at Layla, don't belong in places like this. That was the final straw. Andre turned fully to Margaret. The girl you just humiliated, he said slowly, is my daughter, and I am the owner of this entire boutique chain. Silence. Time seemed to stop. Customers gasped. Staff froze in place. Margaret's smirk evaporated. Her face turned pale. You're the owner? She stuttered. Andre said nothing for a moment. His gaze was steady and cold. You didn't just insult my daughter. You insulted a human being, based on the color of her skin. You dragged this store down into the gutter with your ignorance. He turned to the manager. And you? Why did you stand by and let this happen? I didn't know she was your daughter. The manager whispered. You didn't need to know. Every customer deserves respect. Every single one. Then, facing Margaret once more, his voice dropped lower, but cut deeper. You were right about one thing. He said, this store is for people who deserve to be here. And you are not one of them. Margaret's face turned beet red. Her arrogance collapsed in on itself. Around her, customers looked away in discomfort. Staff wouldn't meet her eyes. I didn't mean to, she tried to say. Andre didn't let her finish. He turned to his bodyguard. Escort her out, and let her know she's banned from every store I own. Margaret looked around the room for support, but found none. Her heels echoed loudly as she walked toward the door, no longer proud but exposed and ashamed. Layla said nothing. She didn't need to. The truth had spoken for her. As the boutique door closed behind Margaret Whitmore, an uneasy silence hung in the air. The once confident woman, who had commanded attention just minutes before, had been reduced to nothing more than a cautionary tale. one whispered about in disbelief by customers who had witnessed every word, every insult, and every lie. The tension slowly dissolved as Andre Johnson remained standing beside his daughter. Layla hadn't moved, her breathing was still shaky, her hands slightly trembling, but her eyes were calm, steady, and full of quiet strength. Andre looked around the boutique once more. Every gaze was now fixed on him, not out of intimidation, but reverence. The manager, visibly shaken, stepped forward. "Mr. Johnson," she began, her voice hesitant. I'm so sorry. I had no idea who she was. If I had known." Andre raised a hand, not in anger, but in firm resolve. "It's not about who she is," he said. "That's the problem. If it takes a name or a title for someone to be treated with respect in your store, then you've already failed." The manager's eyes welled with shame. "You're right. I panicked. I didn't know how to handle it." "You didn't have to panic," he said. "You had a choice. You could have paused, asked questions, looked for the truth. Instead, you stood by while my daughter was humiliated." A few employees nodded subtly, guilt in their faces. They, too, had watched silently, unsure if they should interfere. But now, with the truth out, their silence felt like complicity. Layla finally broke the silence. "It's okay, Dad," she said softly. "I'm okay." Andre turned to her, the firmness in his expression softening immediately. "You didn't deserve that," he said, placing both hands on her shoulders. "No one does." Layla nodded, her voice trembling. "I just wanted to pick a dress. I didn't expect all of this. And you handled it better than most adults would have," he replied, with strength and grace. Customers around them began to speak in hushed voices, not about Layla, but in support of her. One woman, who had witnessed the entire scene, stepped forward. "For what it's worth," she said gently, "you showed incredible poise. That woman, she embarrassed herself. Not you." Another man chimed in. "She made us all uncomfortable. You didn't do anything wrong. You were just shopping, like everyone else." The words, simple as they were, felt like balm to a fresh wound. Layla offered a small smile of gratitude, though the ache inside her hadn't faded completely. Andre turned to the manager once more. "I hope this is a lesson for your entire team. It's not just about policies or protocols. It's about people, and how we choose to treat them." "Yes, sir," the manager said, nodding quickly. "It won't happen again." "It better not," Andre replied firmly. "This store bears my name, and I won't tolerate discrimination, ever." With the confrontation behind them, Andre gently guided Layla toward the back of the store. The crowd parted for them, silent now, not out of fear, but respect. The whispers had shifted from gossip to admiration. Behind them, the boutique remained quiet. The image of Margaret's downfall still lingered like a shadow on the marble floor. A stark reminder of how prejudice can destroy not just reputations, but dignity. And yet, in the center of it all, a teenage girl had stood her ground. As Andre and Layla walked together into the back office of the boutique, the noise of the store behind them faded into a quiet hum. Layla sat down slowly, taking a deep breath as her father closed the door gently behind them. For the first time since the incident began, she allowed herself to exhale fully. Andre knelt beside her, searching her face. "Are you really okay?" he asked softly. Layla nodded. "Yeah, I think I am. Just overwhelmed." Andre reached over and placed a reassuring hand over hers. "You did nothing wrong. Don't let someone else's ignorance make you question your worth." Layla gave him a small but steady smile. "I just kept thinking, how many people go through this, and don't have someone to call?" Andre's face tightened slightly. He had built his empire from nothing, endured silent battles and unspoken bias along the way, but seeing his daughter face it so publicly, so cruelly, lit a fire he hadn't felt in years. "You're right," he said. "Too many. That's why what you did today matters." "I didn't really do anything." "Yes, you did," he said. "You stood your ground, you kept your dignity, and you exposed someone who thought she was untouchable. That takes strength." Layla looked down, thinking, "I used to love coming here. Now I don't know if I'll ever feel the same." Andre gave her a long, quiet look. "Then we'll change that, not just for you, but for every person who walks into our stores and wonders if they'll be judged before they're welcomed." Outside, the store had shifted. Employees were still quiet, reflective. A few were already talking about how they would handle situations differently in the future. Margaret's exit hadn't just marked the end of a confrontation, it had started a conversation. When Layla and her father emerged from the back, the atmosphere was transformed. Some customers offered quiet nods. A few clapped gently. One even said, "Thank you for standing up." Layla stood a little taller. As they left the boutique, hand in hand, a sense of purpose followed them into the sunlight. The dress she had chosen still hung gracefully in its protective cover. But more important than the dress was the quiet revolution she had just sparked. That day, Layla Johnson didn't just shop for a gown. She reminded an entire room of people that dignity isn't something you wear, it's something you carry. And no one, no matter how entitled, has the right to take it away.